It's wonderful to see you all. I recognize some names either in the application process or just in the inquiry process. So I'm so glad you're here tonight. This is kind of an inaugural webinar for the Doctor of Ministry program. This is our very first one. We just felt like it was, I field so many questions, not just about the admissions process, but about really deep content within the tracks. And I'm just not equipped to answer those. So I just thought, gosh, this would be just an easy way for me to put you guys with the mentors and just ask away. So I'm hoping that's what we get out of tonight, is that you're able to really kind of go a little bit deeper than you would with me. But having said that, I am doing two things at once tonight. I'm admitting people, and I'm also going to try to go through a quick PowerPoint, because I really want to get to the meat of this meeting, which is really getting to know the mentors and the track. So I apologize if I keep looking over to the right. There's a lot of activity going on. Also, as I talk and as the mentors talk, please utilize the chat room to post questions. So many of you, when you registered for this, you gave questions, and I'm going to try to address those with my PowerPoint. But as you're listening to Dave and Jason, either we can do it this way where you unmute and ask them directly, but you can also use the chat room, and I'll try to field that as well. But let me go ahead and get started. I'm going to share my screen. And hopefully move some things around. Okay, so this is just going to give you a broad overview of the Doctor of Ministry program. You will see, if you've looked at our website at all, you'll see that you'll see a lot of our tagline or our mission statement is forming, informing, and transforming passionate, reflective practitioners. This is based out of Philippians 1, 9 through 11. So most of these tracks, they have a biblical basis for their structure and their program, and that's our Bible verse. So David Curry will really kind of unpack that in each of the track listings on our website. So each of the tracks will be broken down in forming, informing, and transforming passionate, reflective practitioners. And we do that through a cohort-based experience. So these cohorts are about 8 to 25. Most of our cohorts run every 3 years. There is one cohort that runs every year, and I'll get more into that in just a minute. But this is a 3-year professional degree program that is cohort-based with a heavy emphasis on faculty mentoring and customized learning. So we're really looking for individuals who want to go deeper into their ministry passion. They want to leverage their experience or their ministry context and work towards some goals that they may have personal or for their ministry, and really go in depth and become a more passionate, reflective practitioner. We have 20 plus tracks in many languages. We do Chinese, Korean, Spanish. We're working on a Portuguese and French and Korean. So we have many tracks that are going on at any time. And these tracks are meant to be integrated directly or indirectly into your current ministry setting. So many of the questions that I get are, is this program remote or online? And it is not a typical online program. These are residency-based, in-person cohorts. So it's just for a 2-week intensive in which you'll be taking 2 courses. It's in person, but that's the only in-person requirement, is that 2-week residency per year, followed by 1 major project. So there's the 3-year program consists of 2 major projects with a final thesis project. And then the 4th year is typically that doctoral defense of your thesis and the graduation ceremony. And this is our team. So David is our dean. Typically, you start with me in admissions, and once you're accepted, you'll be introduced to Yvette Garcia. She takes care of the international students as well, and the associate registrar to help you get onboarded. And then Dean, of course, is David Curry. He serves as a faculty mentor for a few tracks. And then Dorothy handles the residencies, travel arrangements, and everything that keeps our program running. So these are the 20 plus tracks that we offer. We're going to tackle Church in the Public Square tonight, but you can kind of get a sense of all the tracks we do offer. The Pastoral Theology in Practice is the one track that we offer every year. In February, out of Charlotte or Hamilton, we offer it in April and October in Hamilton. This is our most popular track. It's very comprehensive, great for pastors. It covers a year in leadership, a year in preaching, and a year in counseling. So it tends to it's just located in Hamilton or Charlotte. The other tracks can have some international locations for residencies as well. The prerequisites for admission. So we basically look for a Master of Divinity or its equivalent. And for us, that means a theological master's from an ATS accredited school with at least 72 credits. You can be accepted with 60 credits in a theological master's, but it's a provisional acceptance based upon completing the additional 12 credits before the second residency. So we have many students who do that. You would just need to gauge whether, your capacity to do both doctoral work and complete master's level courses at the same time. You need at least a minimum of 3 years post-MDiv ministry experience and a current ministry context in which you can integrate your projects. So typically the first 6 months of the year, you're preparing for the residency with a syllabus that the mentors give you. And that's usually 2,000 to 3,000 pages of reading with some assignments. And then post-residency is the last 6 months you're working on a project. The application process is fairly straightforward. We look for an online application. The website is right there. We look for 3 references, a pastor, friend, or colleague, 2 essays, 1 ministry endorsement. This is somebody that's separate from your references. It's a more simple kind of form that they fill out, just vouching for your position and your role within a ministry context. The official transcripts, we only need the MDiv or your theological master's. There's a $65 application fee. I'm going to give you guys an application fee waiver tonight before you leave. And then if you're accepted, there is a $900 matriculation fee, which confirms your seat, but that is applied to the tuition. The tuition is $24,270 total. But we bill by the year. So that's $7,840 per year. We usually send the first bill after the first residency, and then you can break that down into payments and make sure that's paid off before you start your second residency. We do have need-based scholarships, 1 per cohort, that gives you 25% off of the tuition. And that's a very simple application form. We offer advanced standing for military chaplains, Gordon-Conwell THM graduates, and graduates of the Aero Leadership Program. This enables them to audit 1 residency and just pay for 2 years instead of 3. We offer team ministry grants for married couples. So if you want to come with your spouse, they can get 50% off of the tuition. A lot of doctoral students do the partnership program, which is 100% tuition scholarship that's based on fundraising. And I'm happy to give you a lot of information about that. It's wonderful, easy application. You can use the same forms that you used for the doctoral application for the partnership program. But it's based on fundraising and stewardship training. So if you want more information about that, let me know. It's very popular among doctoral students. There is ministry funding. We have many students that get support from their churches or their organizations that they're affiliated with. So if you do have some support and you need extra backing, the dean is willing to write a proposal, a letter on your behalf to the board. So sometimes that helps to show support and secure funding for you. You are responsible for travel to and from residencies, housing and food and books. That is not included in the tuition. That is a very popular question I get asked. And then finally, this is a very international program. Someone asked the countries that we were affiliated with. So our students come from 23 different countries. We do track this. We have Yvette Garcia is our designated official that deals with visas and helps students from other countries get settled and through the visa process, which can sometimes be arduous these days in different countries. But we also have residencies in various countries. So both Dottie and Yvette help arrange all the intricacies of getting travel and understanding housing and things like that. But this is just a list and sample of some of the residencies that we hold in all these different countries, and then as well as the different students that we have. And David Curry is very, very passionate about social media. So he takes a picture of everything. So check us out on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube, and be sure to follow us because you can learn a lot about the day in and day out of the program. But I want to get to the Church in the Public Square track. I'm so delighted that David and Jason are here to join us and to kind of unpack this track for us. I hope you guys are blessed by it. Jason or David, let me start with David. David has an MDiv from Gordon-Conwell and a THD from Boston University's School of Theology. And these are just snippets. I'm going to let them go more in depth. But he's been at Gordon-Conwell since 1995, 20 years on the faculty at Gordon-Conwell. He's the director of the Ockenga Institute, which I hope you'll talk a little bit about, David, and oversees the Thriving in Ministry program. He has served in many, many capacities. Make sure you look at these guys' CVs on our website. They are listed and they are very impressive. He has served as associate pastor in Hamilton and campus pastor. Jason comes to us from Vermont. He has been at Gordon-Conwell since 2019, a senior pastor of 2 churches out of Franklin, Vermont. He comes to us by way of Moody with a bachelor's in pastoral ministry and MDiv and THM from Gordon-Conwell, and his DMin in preaching from the Beeson Divinity School. And that's in Samford, right?
Yeah, Samford University in Birmingham, Alabama.
Yeah, that's my neck of the woods. I'm from Alabama, too. He's the co-director of Ockenga and a mentor for Thriving in Ministry, an adjunct professor of pastoral ministry at Gordon-Conwell and the Rural Home Missionary Association. So these are just snippets of their backgrounds. I'm going to let them take it away.
Yeah, it's delightful being with you folks. Again, my name is Dr. David Horn. My background is eclectic. I have a master's degree in English literature, focusing on theater, the absurd of all things, and all the way from that to my MDiv at Gordon-Conwell, and then my degree in sociology or religion from Boston University. So I've done the whole range of things educationally. I was on faculty at Gordon-Conwell for 20 years, mostly directing the Ockenga Institute, which facilitated theological education for a variety of different constituencies, and continued to work especially with pastors in a couple Lilly-funded programs. But delighted to be here with you guys. You all I feel like at home with you, particularly for you pastors. For the last about 10 years, Jason and I have been running a Lilly-funded program called Ockenga Fellows Program that is very committed to this whole issue of how the church engages the larger culture, so we're just delighted to be here. Jason, do you want to say a few things and then we can go from there?
Yeah, sure. So as Donna said, I am a full-time pastor like most of you. So I preached on Sunday. I got a funeral this Saturday. That is my primary role and job. I've been Interestingly, I'm in a rural area in northern Vermont, so I see Canada from my front porch, which is a lot of fun. And I've been here for 20 years. Actually, the church community just threw us a massive 20th anniversary party earlier this summer. And so if you stick around long enough, you get involved in lots of things in the community. And so I already had an interest in sort of public square since I was young, and have had an opportunity to sort of live that out in my own ministry. In addition to being pastor, I've been an EMT, I've been the chairman of the school board, worked deeply with the government and political community. I've worked with the Restorative Justice Center dealing with justice issues. And so just a lot of on the ground experience. And then, as David mentioned, he and I started working together about 10 or so years ago in the Ockenga Fellows Program, which most of the material for this Doctor of Ministry track has come out of that work that we've done together. As a matter of fact, David and I just published a book together not quite a year ago called Return to the Parish, the Pastor in the Public Square. And I meant to bring a copy of that that David has it. Look at that. The blue background's kind of fading in. We actually were just on a retreat with some of the authors of that book earlier this week. And so that's sort of the cumulative work of just sort of digging around and diving into various sectors of the public square, again, whether that be the arts or education or government, healthcare, and so forth. And so our goal has been to bridge the church and the public square. Unfortunately, as our society has become more secular over the last several decades, that divide has grown deeper and deeper. And that's what this track is all about. So that's a little bit of the genesis of it. Maybe I'll talk a little bit about this later, but as a fellow DMin, I don't have a PhD, but a doctorate of ministry. And I can explain some of the benefits that has given me over the years. So I know some, like even when I saw Donna put that almost $25,000 up on the screen, my eyes sort of pop out. Education continues to get more expensive every year. But when I think about completing my DMin program over a decade ago, the amount of money that I put into that with opportunities that I've gotten to do ministry, it's been a wise investment, has more than double, maybe more than triple paid for the investment over these years with opportunities to do other types of ministry, even beyond the local church. And so I'll leave it at that. David, did we want to talk a little bit about the genesis of this track? Why don't you start with that?
Yeah, let me just say, about 35 years ago, when I started running the Ockenga Institute, I brought together about 15 pastors from around New England that the churches were thriving, and we wanted to figure out why were these churches thriving and other churches not doing so. And we spent 15 months just exploring all of the things that potentially make a church work and thrive and successful. And really, certainly there's plenty of things, not the least preaching and, good programming and good counseling, etc. But the one thing that stood out is the churches that were truly thriving were those that were outward looking. And, New England, for those of you who are not here, New England is filled with a lot of small, little struggling churches. And typically what characterizes those churches are at some point in the life of their church, they started kind of grasping hold and bringing all the resources to themselves. They become hoarders, as it were. And what we found is that the churches that are most successful and thriving and all that are those that are outward looking. There's a deep sense and commitment to the communities around them, locally, but even more broadly, culturally. So that's really the key that that we found is so important is how does your church engage in the culture around you, because it shapes it. And so that's the first thing. Let me again say we've had the privilege of working with over 60 young pastors through the past 9 years, engaging them with a conversation between how their church is engaging in the public square around themselves. So we go to MIT to talk about technology, and we go to the Harvard Business School, and we talk to them about how the church engages in business. We go to BC. We go to the Museum of Fine Arts to talk about how media and society. So all those settings shape the church. In turn, how the church shapes those different elements of the public square. So we're very, very, very interested in this. And what you'll find in this track is that actually the second year of that track, we actually go pretty much spend the whole track on site in all these different settings. So that's part of what. Jason, do you have want to elaborate on that?
Yeah, so this whole track has really grown out of this work that we have done collaboratively through the Ockenga Fellows program. And David, and if you end up taking this track, one of the things that you'll realize is that David is the visionary and the engineer. And so he does all the big idea sort of thing. And then I'm the practitioner or technician that actually gets it done. And so we are hand in glove, fantastic partners in that. And David always stretches me, and then I help him get things done. So we're good partners. And so anyway, that's what we have been doing all these years, helping pastors recognize the needs in their own communities and to leverage relationships with other community leaders. How do you build those relationships? How do you do that? And then really helping pastors to get involved personally in various sectors of the public square to motivate and mobilize other church members to do the same. And so again, David designed this program around 6, 7, or 8 key public squares. So it's not exhaustive by any means, but they're pretty broad. And so we have had the opportunity, as he mentioned, to really build relationships with faculty at Harvard Business School. So if we're going to talk about the church building bridges to the business community, what does workplace theology look like? Well, let's go to Harvard and talk to the business school faculty about that. And sometimes we're meeting with professors in those locations who are believers, sometimes not. But we have so much to learn from all of these different public squares, and we have opportunities to do that. And so that being said, we have developed this particular track. So as Donna mentioned, all tracks have 3 years. And so in the first year of this one, we focus on understanding ourselves as leaders and our immediate context and communities. And so this is where we really leverage David's expertise in sociology and sociology of religion. I have some of that in my background as well, but that's his expertise. And so we talk about what does ministry look like comparatively in urban, suburban, and rural contexts, and what's similar and what's different. Taking other categories of age and class and race, post-modernity, time. And so it's sort of looking at ministry through all of these different sociological lenses. And then part of the big capstone project after that first year is that everyone does a demography. And so we'll teach you, if you don't already know, how to do a full-on demography, a systematic study using United States Census Bureau and lots of other resources to better understand the community in which you live and do ministry. And then the second part of that is we talk about systems theory. And some of you may have background with this, but this is a little bit of where my background and expertise comes in. And whether it's some of you are pastoring churches, and that's fantastic. So we'll want to look at the church as a system. But others of you, I think particularly who are interested in this track, are coming from maybe managing nonprofits, or I talked with some who are in government, some who are in acting, lots of different backgrounds. And so that's the beauty of a DMin too, is that it's collegial education. So David and I are the mentors, teachers, facilitators. We bring these things to the table, but all of you, even around the screen tonight, bring so much education and experience to the table, from your background, from your context, from your experience, and we really want learn together. And that's the beauty of doing this, is that we get to learn from you as well, and we take that very seriously. And so we'll talk about systems theory. Part of the end project too, along with the demography, is doing a social analysis. And then we look at whatever your system is, whether that's a church or a nonprofit, to understand how leadership works. We do a genogram. I don't know if any of you have ever done that, but that's sort of a deep dive into your own family history to sort of understand who you are, why you think the way you do, why you do the things the way you do. It helps you understand your spouse, your kids, your coworkers, the people who drive you crazy. And if you share your information with them, it'll help them understand why you drive some of them crazy as well. And so it's sort of leadership within a system. So that's the first residency year, sociology and systems theory. And then the second year, as David mentioned, that's where we really dig deep into various sectors of the public square. So we'd be reading some Miroslav Volf in public theology and all that means. Lots of other key ones. And so probably when we've used a lot of these texts in our program and in this DMin track before. So for instance, when it comes to taking a look at politics and government, we'd read a book like James Davidson Hunter's To Change the World. When we talk about healthcare, we would probably read Atul Gawande's Being Mortal. He's not a Christian, not a believer, but one of the best books you could ever read on this type of topic. And again, we'll be in the classroom for some of those days, but we'll actually be making field trips into Boston. Again, we'll most likely meet with Dr. Rosalind Picard at MIT, who's one of the world's leading scientists in affective artificial intelligence. And so I can't teach you that, but Rosalind can. And so we'll learn a lot about the scientific community and what's happening in technology, and actually how scientists like her need pastors and theologians and people in ministry like us to help them think through some of the ethical ramifications of the very work that they're doing. Some of these public squares have people that are crying out for people who have our skill set. So it's all about bridging those things together. And so that's the second year, dabbling into lots of different types of public square, and then really together thinking about what does this mean for us as practitioners. And then the third year is a little bit of what Donna was mentioning with the pastoral theology track. And so it's not quite as deep as that one, but it is sort of pastoral theology and practice for the public square. And so we will take a look at things like just sort of kind of a refresher on pastoral theology, but with that lens of broadening that out to the public square. And then also looking at various skills, whether it be we'll look at preaching and some counseling, lots of leadership and management type things, skills that we all need to be able to flourish. Again, whether it's in the church that's trying to build a bridge to the public square, or maybe we're in the public square trying to help that build a bridge back to the church. And so those are the three years. What David and I try to do with this track also is accelerate the dissertation project. And so even after the second residency, we want you to begin work writing your dissertation. And so usually the key project coming out of that is chapter 2 of your dissertation. And so not all tracks do that, but this one does. It sort of accelerates because One of the things that just it's tragic in my opinion is someone to start a program like this and not finish it. And Donna, you can probably correct me, but I think the going statistic has been only about 50% who start actually finish. I think that's true of most doctoral programs. And so we want to accelerate you through this to make sure that you actually graduate with your degree, and then God's able to use that in lots of different ways in your life as well. So, David, do you want to pick up on any other details? This is just a broad sketch. All of the literature is on the website that gets into some of the nitty gritty of what we'll be doing as far as actual textbooks and syllabi. Some of those types of things are, I think, available for you to sort of scan. But we're happy to answer any questions that you would have on any of the content or the process.
I was going to mention, just piggybacking off of that, what you just said. This is a 3-year program, but after your third residency, you will have a 2-year grace period to write your thesis and defend it. So that's a very lenient grace period. If you don't get it defended and don't graduate in that 2-year grace period, there is, I think, a $500 annual fee to continue to stay in the program and, keep going. So go ahead, David. I interrupted you.
No, I let me just finally just say, I don't think there's a time for pastors where this kind of discussion is more important. I mean, we all know that the church is kind of struggling right now. We live in a highly polarized cultural moment that doesn't seem like it's going to get any better. How does the church engage in the culture around itself, and how does the church not be even unintentionally enculturated in ways they don't realize? So we just think this conversation between the church and the culture around us is just so critical, and probably never has been more critical than today. Some of you have probably read Charles Taylor, just book on secularization, how increasingly we're becoming a more and more secular culture. Well, how does the church engage that culture right now? And that's precisely what this program is all about.
Good.
Can I ask a question here at this point?
Yep. Go ahead, Thomas.
What I'm trying to focus on is for the church to have a prophetic voice and a prophetic conscience for the culture, or for the nation, or for nations. And I don't see that it can do that effectively without first fulfilling its primary mission of mercy and acts of mercy towards the poor and the sick and the uneducated or what have you. I don't know if that's a too broad of a generalization to posit, but that's what I've been thinking about.
Yeah, those are certainly issues that we discuss at length all the way through this program. And so, for instance, what does that mean for us to have a prophetic voice in a culture where the church has lost a lot of credibility?
Yeah.
And so that's a key conversation that we have all the way through. And then likewise, acts of mercy. And so actually, one of the new book projects that David and I are going to be working on upcoming is this balance between gospel proclamation and social action. And so what does that most evangelical churches have not done a great job at that over the last several decades. It's either one or the other, not both and. And so these are you just put your thumb on two key themes that we talk about all the way through. So I'm excited to hear your interest in that.
In a month and a half, Jason and I are going to be bringing in 12 pastors to inner city Boston, and particularly looking at the whole immigration problem, which is just completely exploded right now in Boston. So many of the immigrants are being pushed out of New York and now into Boston, and we want to understand better that whole immigration issue from the inside out. And so we're going to be visiting some very, very important places to discover for ourselves what's going on there.
I do have a question that I want to pose to you that's come through the chat. And this is how it reads. I have a particular interest in exploring sustainable culture change in the workplace, likely for a DMin program, where research on culture change models and Jesus's application of a culture change model as evidenced by the Gospels will require more than one advisor. For example, secular models, scripture models, behavioral models in one's dissertation. Is this a possibility for the DMin program? And can a recommended sustainable culture change model be tested and implemented in practice during the DMin program? Take it away, Jason.
Well, can I just say that sounds like a project right there. I mean, that's your project within this program.
Right.
Yeah, you took the words right out of my mouth, David. That sounds like a dissertation project for this particular track. And so let me back up just a little bit. Workplace, theology, economics, again, it's one of the key public squares we spend time thinking about, talking about, investigating. And so, yes, and that's maybe I could just jump ahead a little bit. Our general goal for this track, for dissertations, for the final thesis project, is that you would take some sociological category and match that up with some category of either theology and or ministry, and that would sort of be what your project is. And so, for instance, some who have gone through this track in the past, we had one DMin student who is at a Chinese church, and what he did so he was dealing with immigration issues and really wanted to explore identity development in second generation Chinese. And it was a phenomenal project that he completed. Another one felt deeply burdened about politics and sort of the political strife that we're experiencing. And he felt like he was sort of silenced or not competent to be able to deal with some of that prophetic. And then how do you disciple people through politics? And so he created a whole political discipleship curriculum that he tested on a target group from his congregation. And we hope that he's going to publish that down the road. We've certainly encouraged him to think about doing that. So yes, and yes to all components of that question. That's the exact type of project that we're excited to sort of help you think about. I will just say very quickly, what you're proposing there sounds super ambitious, and what we will probably do is try to, for the sake of this project, so you can actually complete it, is to pare that down so it's reasonable that you can get it done in the time period allotted. So, but it will be up to you how ambitious you want to be, but that's often the work that we end up doing, is saying, at least for this project, we might need to, we can't solve all the problems of the world in one DMin project, but we can at least test some ideas out on a real group of people and see how that goes, and maybe use that as a springboard for later projects down the road.
Okay, I have some questions coming in. So this is from someone who's not a full-time pastor, but very much in a part-time position. Can part-time pastoral people be a part of the DMin program?
Well, listen, you're living the future of where a lot of pastoral and where church life is. The growth industry, whether this is a good thing or a bad thing, I don't know, but is really part-time pastoring, the economics, etc. So absolutely. In fact, that in itself would be kind of an interesting, project in and of itself, of how you engage culture. And in fact, partly because we assume that if you're not full-time pastor, you're also deeply involved in another vocation and in a kind of a cultural context. So yeah, absolutely.
In this case, he's a veterinarian.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. When I saw that, I would love to have a veterinarian in our cohort because
Yeah.
we all learn things about animals that we didn't know before. As a matter of fact, not in the Ockenga Fellows program, but just through my church, I run a side program on faith in the public square with MDiv students from Beeson Divinity School. And so they send them up for several weeks in the summertime and explore rural ministry with me. And so one of the things I do is take them on farm tours, and we meet with large animal vets and farmers and that type of thing, which is agriculture is another key piece of the public square. And so that's the type of expertise, and for you to live out your faith, yes, in the church, but also in your workplace, working with other vets and working with clients and helping animals. That's the exact type of track that this is. You're sort of tailor-made for this track, in my opinion.
Okay, talk about any overseas travels with this track.
Well,
is there any?
Yeah, one of the things we found in working with the Ockenga Fellows is if you're going to talk about culture, our culture, particularly New England culture, but even American culture, it helps to look at it against the backdrop of a larger culture or a different culture. So in the past, we've gone to China, actually, and we just got back 2 months ago from Croatia and Prague. Those are really healthy, very interesting things to look at, and what an interesting thing to look at how your church engages the community and culture around you when you're visiting a house church pastor or set of pastors in China. And we find that is very, very valuable. The reality is we realize how expensive this program is for all of you. One of the things we would probably do early on in when we get together is to talk about the viability of such. We have opportunities to go to a variety of different places around the world, and maybe one of the 2 week residencies we would go to a seminary in Croatia and study in that context, and we could go other places as well. But there's some realities to that, so we would not we haven't determined that will be part of the features, but we certainly will have that conversation for those that actually become part of the program. And if it seems like people would like to do that, we would certainly welcome that.
Okay, I have another question. What theological tradition do both of you hail from, and how do those traditions affect your approach to this topic?
Yeah, that's a great one.
Yeah.
So I did not grow up in the church. I was converted later in life as a kind of a late teenager. I had never even seen the inside of a church until I was 17 years old. And I was a full-blown alcoholic and literally stumbled into church on a Sunday morning. And that was a Wesleyan holiness church. So sort of on the extreme of the Methodist end of things. And so that's where I was converted and discipled, and but I had no identity. And then when I moved from Pennsylvania to Chicago, I was just looking for a church. I didn't understand all the theological differences with no background. So I wound up becoming a PCA Presbyterian, which is the complete opposite theologically and polity-wise. It made no sense at all. But that's where I landed for those years. And I have been in the 4 C's, the Conservative Congregational Christian Conference, for the last 20 or so years. So it's a small congregational denomination, evangelical, very similar to Gordon-Conwell's statement of faith. And so, yeah, and I would say that it's kind of a big tent denomination. So our mantra is unity in essentials, diversity in non-essentials. And so there's a lot of theological diversity and liberty within our denomination. And I would say that that describes me pretty well also, that some days I think, gosh, I'd rather be an Anglican. And then other days I'm thinking, boy, I kind of look like I'm a Baptist. And so I deeply appreciate all the theological traditions. And that's the other thing too, in our past DMin cohorts, they've been very eclectic theologically.
They really have.
And I love, it's great when you have an Anglican and a Pentecostal sitting next to each other and just saying, what are you doing here? And trying to figure out those worlds together. And we really celebrate that sort of eclectic background. David?
Yeah, and just real quickly, I grew up, my dad was a Baptist minister from Minnesota, but been out here. I pastored a congregational church, 310 years old. If you read David McCullough's latest book, his last book actually, called The Pioneers, it's the first third of it is about my book, my church. So it's congregational. I tend to be personally somewhat fairly reformed, moderately reformed in my approach, which I think enriches this whole kind of conversation on how the church engages culture. But again, like Jason, we love kind of a very eclectic kind of conversation.
Yeah, that's one of the comments we get. One of the praise comments we get from students is all the non-denominational, but all the diversity of the students. So, okay, this is a really great question. It's something I get asked a lot in admissions. I'd like to hear more about the yearly rhythm of pre-work, residency, and post-work / projects, reading, writing, focus, time commitment expected, etc. And is there cohort interaction or collaboration during the pre-post residency seasons? I get asked this a lot. This is a popular question.
Yeah, Don, do you want to answer that from a general perspective, or do you want just kind of us to share our experience with that?
Yeah, if you could share your experience. Yeah, I know we are told from the dean to recommend that people apply at least 3 to 6 months, sometimes 8 months before that first residency, because it does require a lot of time to set aside for reading. But I don't know a whole lot about the post-residency project time commitment. So,
Well, yeah, you're going to find in the syllabi that we have a nice array of textbooks, that will require your preparation before you get to the residency. So there is that rhythm of really reading early on, and then on the other side of the residency, there are typically projects that we ask, some writing and some papers and some variety of different things. We don't think it's unmanageable at all. We don't feel it at all. But so the rhythm is really the preparation time, the residency, the post residency is completing those projects, and then beginning the preparation for the next residency. And as Jason has said, we really want to make it easy on you. We really want those projects to actually move towards your final project, your final thesis work. So you're actually building, by the time you're finished with your residencies, you are well along in the way to actually having written your I just talked to one of my students yesterday who is literally, as he's writing his thesis, he's really writing a book. And he's got one more residency left, and he's almost finished his project. Now that is very, very rare, trust me, but boy, we love that.
I would say this too. So just very clearly, for this track, the only pre-course assignment is the reading. There's no written work coming into it, so it's just having. But again, it's 2,000 to 3,000 pages of reading, depending on. I'm a slow reader myself, and so 3 to 6 months. I like the more 6 month time frame to be doing that reading and preparation. We do discuss all the textbooks. None of this is busy work, and so it all comes in. So the reading is the only pre-course thing you would ever have. During the 2-week residency, very little by way of assignments or anything like that, because these are long days that we spend together for 2 weeks. And in fact, sometimes we'll go all day and then maybe even have dinner at David's house and watch a film on the sort of content area, that type of thing. So not much work that needs to be done during the residency. And then what we do is like to, by the end of the residency, sort of as a cohort, negotiate what's a reasonable time frame for you to complete the post-course assignment. And so, for instance, the cohort that we're working with right now, they had a residency last November, and they had until June to have all of their assignments completed. So it was 6 months, and we had those sort of regimented out. Now, here's where I get a little hesitant to say this. I probably shouldn't, but I will. These were sort of arbitrary deadlines that we set really for your benefit more than ours. And so if a particular assignment wasn't done by the due date, we're not overly concerned about that as long as it gets finished, because we recognize, being full-time pastors and veterinarians and all the different things that we're doing, this is a lot to ask. And so that being said, we try to just give ample time and be very reasonable about the time commitment. And then as far as, I think students who are disciplined do better. And so for those who, and students do this very differently. Some will take 1 day a week. Some will take 2 hours a day, whatever type of rhythm works best for you. And, I'd be happy to share some of my personal experience maybe at a later time of what I think might be most successful. But you have to figure out your sort of rhythms and work best with that. So we'll work with you the best we can to make it manageable.
And let me just say, in terms of the content of the residencies, we're going to be bringing a lot of content and even guest speakers and lectures at points, but we really believe strongly in kind of the round table kind of conversation. So we're very, very committed to a huge part of the residencies being you guys talking to one another, and we'll certainly put you in those kind of contexts, case studies, etc., where you're going to be really kind of talking to each other and not just to us or us to you.
Yeah, good. Yeah, that's good. Okay, here's another good question. Can you speak to the diversity at Gordon-Conwell and the role such diversity plays in theological engagement and perspective?
Well, if statistics mean anything, and I may have this a little bit wrong, but it's in the book. In Hamilton, I think the last few years, I think it's 65% ethnic kind of context. So when you talk about ethnic diversity, I think this Gordon-Conwell is increasingly becoming pretty diverse, even in the Hamilton campus. And I certainly would say that in our tracks as well. Now, there's lots of other kinds of diversity as well, but diversity of race has certainly been part of the experience of Gordon-Conwell.
Yeah, and David and I recognize that, even as mentors, we're both white male congregationalists, and that's a bit of a limitation. That's why we really try to leverage men and women and African Americans and Hispanics and Asians, just sort of racial and ethnically speaking. But again, we really love diversity in to have people from rural backgrounds with urban backgrounds and suburban theological backgrounds. As I mentioned, everything from Anglican to Baptist to Methodist, theological diversity. So what we try to do is leverage diversity at every end so that we're hearing from the various voices throughout God's kingdom. We believe that that is very, very crucial.
So again, it's easy to talk about diversity purely in ethnic terms, but we find the kind of diversity that has been so useful is a rural pastor talking to an urban kind of context or suburban context. And I just think that's a very rich conversation.
Good. Good answers. Thank you. Thank you so much. I want to make sure, Dwight, did we answer your question in terms of hours per week? You asked a question about, especially, for those who have active obligations, the number of hours per week. Did we address that?
Not exactly, but I get the sense it's on the order of about 20 hours per course, if I can say it that way, per week.
20 hours may be a little high.
I would say high. Yeah, I would think more in the 6 to 10 hours per week, maybe 12. But yeah, I think if someone kept, sort of an 8-hour a week rhythm, you'd be just fine all the way through. That would be my. But again, how you divide up those hours is completely up to you. But I would say that's probably a more target.
Thank you. That helps.
If I may, just for a little perspective, I was taking 2 PhD courses at one point, and the amount of reading for the block of time they're discussing was usually done within 1 week, maybe a week and a half on the PhD level. So if that helps any in terms of understanding.
Good. I had another question that came in a registration form. And it's a broad question. Is the Church of Jesus Christ doing more than enough to win souls or just having church?
Well, maybe that's right at the heart of this track, which is
right.
Again, it's healthy, vital churches are always looking outward on so many different levels, not the least evangelism, but social justice issues, all those things that if we're not looking outward and just hoarding the gospel for ourselves, we are already a dead church. We're a dying church. So
yeah, if we were already doing more than enough, there would be no need for this track.
And then someone asked, would it be possible to get a preliminary reading list for this track? Not exhaustive, but maybe a snippet of some readings. Okay.
Yeah, easy.
Okay.
I'm trying to remember off the top of my head what's on the website already. But we have that material. If you email either David or I, we'd be happy to send you some reading lists so you get a sense. I will say that these are, how would you say it, David? I mean, they're maybe not 100% concrete at this point, so they might change just a little bit. But we've used these texts, and they've been very helpful to us. And so, but yeah, we'd love for you to get a preview of that to see what you're reading, of course.
Yeah, I don't know. This is a DMin question. I don't know to what extent we're allowed to give out the syllabi, or are they posted? The syllabi posted?
No, you can only get the full syllabi when you've matriculated. But we have offered, a sample of some books or readings to students. So,
let me just give you a preview of the first week of the first residency, which is particularly focuses on sociology, religion, etc. So I'm just going to read through these if these mean anything to you. We're going to look at Peter Berger's The Sacred Canopy. We're going to be actually looking at Smith's book on why I'm not secular. which is kind of a kind of a abbreviation of Charles Taylor's book. Robert Withnaw, Small Town America. Mark Abramson, Urban Sociology. Greg Dickinson, Suburban Dreams. Rodney Claps, of Peculiar People. Now those are kind of the text, 3, 4, 5, 6 textbooks for that first
Great.
week.
First week.
Okay, good. Here's another good question. Can you share a bit about the process or the focus of the DMin project or dissertation compared to a PhD?
David, you want it or you want me?
And then I think we've got one more question after that, and then we'll close.
PhD dissertation, it pretty extensive, and the focus is different. It's a much more academic kind of context. The DMin is a very serious piece of research as well, but for different purposes. Always a practical application for it. The way I would put it with the DMin, you always want to contextualize these kind of projects. So you certainly have a theoretical basis for it, but it's also grounded in a congregational setting or community setting. Jason?
Yeah, very, very similar. So a DMin dissertation requires a praxis project. So it's where you're taking your hypothesis or your theory and actually testing it on a group of people. Now, if you're a pastor, many times those people come from your parish or congregation, but it doesn't have to be. When I did my project, I did research on other pastors, and so that's certainly a possibility. So there's lots of different options for that, but you'll always have a test case, a project where you're measuring your theory with an actual group, and so there's usually like surveys pre-project and post, so that you can measure what people gained or learned or how they changed throughout whatever process you're trying to create. And so, as David said, it's very practical.
Good. Ribbons asked, is there room for non-church entities in this track, such as NGOs and charities? And definitely, yes. We get people from all types of organizations, parachurch ministries, not just churches. So, yeah.
That enriches our cohort.
Boy, it sure does. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Any other questions? We went past the 8 o'clock, but I kept it open until 8:30 for any questions or wrap up. So great to see you all. Thank you so much for coming out tonight.
Thank you guys for taking the time.
Yeah. And definitely, I put my email address. You can email me, donna@gcts.edu. I'll send you more details. I'll send you a snippet of the reading list. The application fee waiver is right there. All caps, DMin waive. We would love to have 2 or 3 more for the Church in the Public Square track. It is open. It is ready to receive applications. So it typically takes about 2 weeks to maybe a month to pull an application together. And then if you're accepted, we get you that syllabus and you can start preparing it. The first residency for it will be in March. I think I don't have the exact dates, but I can certainly send you the dates for this track. So you certainly can have some time to prepare for it if you're interested. All right. Well, we want to respect your time as well. So let's, Dr. McConnell, could you give us a closing prayer?
Love to do that.
Thank you, everyone.
Father in heaven, we thank you for this time that you've given us to be together and see each other's faces. Lord, I pray for each one of these ministers of your kingdom, that your spirit would lead them and guide them. If it's your will for them to enroll in this track or another track or whatever it is, we ask that your providence would lead and guide. We thank you for all that you have done for us, most clearly in the giving of your Son, our Savior, Jesus Christ.
Amen.
That we can know you for who you are, and we have been redeemed from the darkness and brought into the light. And so we celebrate your work tonight and ask that you would continue in each of our hearts and souls. We offer you ourselves as living sacrifices. Use us for your glory. In the name of Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen.